Qualifications for Astronauts, page 35. In your experience with the WASP, what percentage did actually wash out? Ms. Cochran, it was just a fraction under 40%, as I recall. This is almost 20 years. I have the records. They are in my dead files. The attrition rate, I believe, runs higher today in the armed services. I don't know this, but I'm under the impression it is so. I think it is about 40%. It paralleled that of the men, just a fraction under the men at the time. Mr. Rileman, that is all? Mr. Anfuso, we will have a summation by our bachelor of the committee, Dr. Fulton. Mr. Fulton, I want to read the last sentence of your statement. I have in mind the need for a large group, considering the time the research will take and the natural rate of attrition among the volunteers due to marriage, childbirth, and other causes. My question is this: what size group would you want? Ms. Cochran, I would not want to see less than 50 to 75 or 100. Mr. Fulton, it should be, Ms. Cochran, say 50 would be minimum. Mr. Fulton, about 50 to 100. Ms. Cochran, even more. Mr. Fulton, training as astronauts? Ms. Cochran, yes. Mr. Fulton, next, would you put them through the same kind of training as the astronauts got in their 3-year period? Ms. Cochran, yes. Mr. Fulton, so you would start them on astronaut training after this preliminary selection? Ms. Cochran, the ground training, yes, sir. Mr. Fulton, would you have to qualify both for aeronautics and astronautics? Ms. Cochran, I don't know. I think it might be interesting to train astronauts that have never been pilots. Extremely interesting. Mr. Fulton, would you have the Air Force open up the Air Force Academy to these women for courses? Mr. Anfuso, will you yield there before she answers that question? In reference to what you just said about being extremely interesting to train one who has not been a pilot, would you say that we might train a scientist, either female or male? Ms. Cochran, yes, sir, if you have an opportunity. Mr. Fulton, would you open the service academies up so they could be taking under the same conditions these courses that would advance their careers in astronautics? Ms. Cochran, no, sir, but you will have to bear with me a minute. When I was called home from England by General Arnold in 1942 to head up and select a group of women, at that time we had already the Waves and the WAC. The Marine Corps was just getting ready to have their Marine girls. Mr. Fulton, then you would not put these women in our U.S. Armed Services. Ms. Cochran, may I finish, sir? Otherwise, I can't get your question unless you hear my thinking through.